Del Santo.
Present.
Valerie DiPaolo.
Here.
William Dietzick.
Here.
Tom Lombardi.
Here.
James Morelli.
Here.
Christopher Palmeri.
Here.
Jack Perry.
Here.
Ray Triano.
I am here. Should we all stand for the and followed by our flags?
Heavenly Father, tonight we pray for direction and courage. We need your help to define our path and courage to walk it. We ask you for your continued blessing upon Southington and her people. Amen.
Amen. Please join me for the flag salute. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. May I have a motion for the minutes from our last meeting?
I'll make that motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mike. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Chris. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition, any additions or deletions? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Let's open up for council matter communications. Yes, go ahead, Paul.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple items that I just wanted to bring forward. The first is, as we round up this year's regular school season, just wanted to give a shout out to all the teachers and educational staff and say thank you to all those who are in the schools and are helping educate and take care of our kids. Another year coming out of the COVID times, and I know that things are always in a state of flux these last few years, so I wanted to just give a special thank you to the teachers and everybody else who are in the school. So thank you.
Thank you.
Also, for all, I think most all of us were at the Memorial Day Parade. Special thank you to the American Legion and the Veterans Committee for putting on such a great event. And in line with the American Legion Post 72 has recently nominated and awarded Officer Chris Laporte as the Police Officer of the Year for the Post 72. And most recently, Officer Laporte was also put in for the American Legion State of Connecticut Police Officer of the Year. So great effort and a great achievement for Officer Laporte. And it's a nice star for the Southington Police Department as he's representing so well.
Very good.
Thank you.
Very good. Anyone else? Val, would
Madam
you
Chair,
like
thank
to,
you.
Go ahead.
So I just want to follow up on that because I was going to also mention about Officer Laporte. He is in the running for the National Officer of the Year, which is really great. And then just also just wanted to acknowledge our police department with an incident last week at the high school. Their training and being ready to do what they need to do. So that's really important in our community.
I would just add to that, the scope of their response, Val, was unbelievable. So even officers that were doing other things left what they were doing to go to respond to that call. And so it just speaks to the readiness of our PD. So
Right. I just obviously in today's environment. Another thing I just wanted to say, I'm very happy to be on, along with you, Madam Chair, on the group that is the stakeholders that are looking at the issue of public transportation and what that might look like in our community. So that seems to be moving along. It's a very large group, and I think that's going to at least push the issue, and at some point maybe it will come, before the council.
we'll see.
And I would also I have a couple congrats. First, to the high school baseball team. They unfortunately came up short in the state finals. They had a tremendous season and under very difficult circumstances, losing Charlie Lembo. And I just really want to, give a shout out to the players, the coaches that filled in this year, parents, and just what a great season to get to the finals. They lost 7-5. They made a run at it at the end. So a tremendous season for them. I do want to say how exciting it was to be at the girls' softball game on Friday night. So the girls, the high school team, they won a three-peat So they've won 3 state titles in a row, and they won their 20th title since the inception of the program, and they set a national record. So there were three other teams in this country, softball teams, that had won 19 state titles, and both of those teams lost this year. And Southington was able to win. So they hold the national record right now for 20 state titles, and they've won 5 state titles in the last 8 years, which is just crazy.
Amazing.
So just really, thank you to our AD, Steve Risser, our assistant AD, Jim Danello, Lori Martin, the trainer, and obviously all of the girls, the parents, the boosters,
We're going to get
coaches.
them all in here. We want to.
Yeah, well, Madam Chair, they are having their banquet on our next meeting on June 27th. So they, of course, are asking already if there will be some kind of a proclamation.
Oh, of
And
course.
I told them, so we'll have to figure out how to do that.
Because we're only meeting once in July and August.
Right.
So
right.
perhaps we can do it during the summer. It would be very nice, perhaps at the July meeting. But we'll talk to them. We
Okay.
want to make sure that as many of
Okay.
them that can come.
They serving food at the banquet? Maybe we can go to the banquet?
Do our meeting at the banquet. Yeah, they are serving food. So, but just, for both the baseball and the softball, it's
Yeah.
just it's
Wonderful.
for both teams to be in the finals.
And great
So,
tribute to Coach Linville.
Yeah, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes. Tom?
All set, Councilwoman DePaul?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. Piggybacking off of the sports announcements, I also wanted to recognize the St. Paul baseball team for being Class S champions. They have several Southington residents who play on that team as well. So overall, just a great weekend for Southington athletics. And Val, I'd be happy to assist you again with
Absolutely.
the proclamation for the softball
Absolutely.
team. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Who else? Anyone else? Jack, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First one is just, it feels like it's been forever since our last council meeting because there's just so much going on in the community. So I want to encourage the residents to check out the FOIA meeting or the training meeting that we had on May 25th. I learned a lot myself, which that's always good and encouraging to learn more, and obviously making sure that our government is operating in an open and transparent fashion. Another event that I was able to attend, which was another great event, was the Early Childhood Collaborative of Southington. Joanne Keller does a phenomenal job. So I went to a breakfast event there, and it was awesome to be able to have a conversation about the youth and what programs. And, she is just such an asset to our community. So that's, just wanted to recognize that. Also attended the Steps Coffee and Conversation on, June 4th. That one was, again, a lot of information. Some of it obviously saddens me as a parent to see what some of our youth are going through. We went over some of the survey results, and, I encourage, the residents as well as all the council members to maybe dig into that a little bit, just so that, we're doing the best that we can for our community. I had the opportunity as well to partner up with Mark Latham. He's a town resident, and he works for the DEEP, and he did a presentation at Apollo Middle School for a couple classes. So we talked about sustainability, recycling, plastic in the ocean, ways that we could, do a better job composting to divert organic waste. So that was, cool to meet with students. And when I was there, I was kind of reflecting on it because one of the students mentioned that he wanted to, bring a petition to their principal, which is Chris Palmeri. And at that point in time, I reflected that, and when I was in science class, I never thought I would go into that field that I'm in, where the Department of Environmental Protection is kind of overseeing it and finding sustainable practices and trying to make our earth a cleaner place. So it just, it's kind of cool that, Mr. Palmeri was my science teacher and we talked about that stuff. And then now here's one of his students, talking about petitioning the principal.
right out of school.
You look the same to me, Mr. P. So, that was a great opportunity. And then there's a couple fire department events over the last week. Deputy Chief Scott DiBattista retired, 28 years of service, and I actually learned from him that he replaced actually a family member of mine. So 28 years ago, Mervyn Carey ended up retiring from the fire department, and Scott was his replacement. So that was kind of cool to talk to him about that. And then this morning, there was a swearing-in ceremony of 2 new officers, and then some firefighters, and then some officers that were promoted within the department. So I just want to obviously thank the fire department for all that they do. I feel they do a great job keeping our town safe, and station number 3 opening, I think again will help with response times and some of the master plan stuff that we've seen. So, and that is pretty much it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Chris, go ahead.
I had some things that actually will build upon some of the comments mentioned. So I'll start with steps. Jack mentioned the workshop held at the Calendar House. The steps board had our last meeting of the year and talked about the turnout at that event, which was great. The board, we're looking forward to the presentation actually. to the
Coming
council,
here,
the
next meeting,
Yep.
yeah.
So that's coming up. The other big reveal, we've talked about it a couple times here. As you remember, Steps is taking over what formerly used to be the DARE program in partnership with the police department. Some details were revealed at our last board meeting. There will be 7 modules that focus on asset development. Developmental assets are what we want kids to have more of. Mental health and prevention. So content development will be led by a 5th grade teacher who has curriculum design experience, and then they'll be working with the police department. There's going to be ways to leverage the student interaction to translate knowledge that they can take forward. Again, the target is to start this in the fall of 2022. So this
That's wonderful, yeah.
partnership with the police department. So that's steps. Tapping into what Paul said, actually several of us, it's been a while. This was a 3-week session since our last meeting, but almost all of us attended the military lunch right in this room on May 26th. So that was great. To recognize the students going into military service. There were 3 this year. 2 of them were present that day, but unfortunately the 3rd was sick. So they'll be recognized actually at graduation, but again, many of us at the council were there for that. So special shout out and thanks to all our seniors that are going to the military. Again, just to tap onto what Paul was saying, graduation is this Friday, so I wish all the graduating seniors the best. Know your community stands behind you.
Yes.
We're very proud of their accomplishments,
Wonderful.
so that will be Friday. I attended the last Board of Ed meeting, and one of the things that was good that came up is the board approved the addition of 3 social workers, a school psychologist, and 2 BCBAs to supplement existing support staff. So we've talked about that quite a bit here, as well as we've heard at the board level. So that's really positive for our town to know that there's some extra support in support services. And that was approved again last Thursday at the Board of Ed meeting. So it's good news to share. I had the pleasure of attending the first 2 weekends. Vicki, you were there the first weekend at the drive-in. Just want to give a shout out and recognize our drive-in committee.
Yeah.
It's such a great asset to this community. Seeing how many people come into Southington to
Really enjoy it.
drive-in. It's really great. So shout out to all the organizers for all their work with the drive-in. And the last one I request, hopefully for the town manager. I know I've mentioned this a couple of years, maybe last year, 2 years ago. The sidewalks in front of Ideal Forge, they really need some extreme TLC. So if you could maybe have someone from Public Works out there take care of that. We promote making sure our residents upkeep their own sidewalks. So that one's kind of a gray area.
The ownership is still in flux, so you
Right,
town may have to
exactly.
pick up
So I'm
that.
hoping the town could assist us with that.
I'll call the person who's going to buy it. If they can't do it, then we'll get out there.
Okay, I appreciate that. Okay, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Chris. Yeah, busy time. Anybody else? Anyone else? Yeah, Jim?
Yes, Madam Chair, as most people know, COVID was a difficult time for all of us, to get out and get around. And I am on the board of directors of the Arc and Plantsville. It was especially a tough time for the patrons of that organization to be able to leave their homes and still be mobile in the society. So during that time, there was a temporary tent erected in the parking lot over in Plantsville. And they were able to do some nice localized programming for the patrons. But they had a lot of trouble with wind and rain, and it just was not a great setup. So the director, Trish, had an idea that it would be wonderful if we could build a gazebo or a pavilion that could be used year-round for on-site functions. So on behalf of the board of the ARC and also from the town, we'd like to thank the Main Street Foundation for a very substantial grant that will allow us to build that pavilion. It will have actually cooking facilities so they can actually cook inside the pavilion. There'll be a drop-down screen for videos so we can have dances and videos. And it's going to be a true asset to that facility. So again, I just wanted to thank those people that were involved with that vision and also for that funding. It's going to really make a big impact for those who don't ordinarily have an opportunity to get out in the community.
Great, great.
Thanks.
Anybody else? I have a couple, just a few. I had the pleasure yesterday to celebrate Father Krasinski's 50th anniversary as a priest at Holy Trinity. Had an event at the AquaTurf, and it was just lovely, and it was great to see so many priests from all over New England and the coast, our Atlantic coast, come out for Father, and he was very happy, and so that was great. The other thing I just want to let everybody know, on our next meeting, I would like to honor those firefighters and police officers that have retired during the course of COVID. We've seen a great deal of our Southington Fire Department, a number of them, and a number of police officers. So we've invited them to come to the meeting on the 26th, is it? 24th, 27th? Thank you, Mark. 27th. And we're just going to honor them with a little thank you and acknowledgement of their years of service. It's quite a few years when we start adding it all up. So we're excited about that. And we've mentioned the police and fire department today and going to different things, but also, at our next meeting, it's going to be a very busy meeting, but I really want to do that in the month of June, prior to our limited meeting schedule. So those are my two things. So if there's anybody else? Okay. Well, let's move on then. Report of special committees. Public Works, Mike.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had our meeting on Wednesday, June 1st. Just a couple of items to report on. The chief spoke about the new stop signs at the trail crossing on Mill Street. And I tell you, I've driven by them a couple of times, and I forgot that they were new. It's like they were there all the time. They work really great, and the public is, well, I didn't drive through them.
We don't even see they were there.
I didn't fly through them and get a ticket, but it was like they were always there, I guess is what I should have said. And a couple of times when I did stop, residents were walking across, so they're very appreciative of it. So it looks like it's working out well.
Good.
And at the next Public Works meeting, we're going to probably talk about maybe doing the stop signs on Bird Street, which is another pinch point in town.
Sure.
So, and they look great. The stop signs look good, and we're very happy that that public safety is in check there. Ms. Turnquist reported that the Highway Department is currently a little understaffed. They had one worker who was out with an injury, and there's on the Southington website, there is a listing for summer help. They can't get laborers to work, so if anyone needs a job, it's a perfect job for a college student for the summer. So get online and apply for the position and hopefully get to work. This was a couple of weeks ago. I'm not sure if they're filled or not, but I shared it on my social media page. Hopefully, if anyone's interested in the job, they can always log on and apply for the position. I know Councilman Perry spoke at the last meeting and actually came to our Public Works meeting talking about Route 10 and 322, the improvements that they're making there. So that's still very much on our radar. Jim Grappone mentioned that construction is anticipated to begin in spring 2024. So we do have some time to make sure that we cross T's and dot I's to make certain that the businesses and the residents in that area are looked after. So we're going to keep an eye on that. And Mr. Chaplinsky asked that we can, and actually, Mr. Perry actually spoke at the meeting to talk about sidewalks. Sidewalks are always a hot topic issue. Planning and zoning, and even now through public works. So we're going to put that on our next agenda and really kind of drill down and see what we can do about either adding additional sidewalks, especially in the school access areas, and just have a general discussion about where some sidewalks may be needed throughout town. And we also had a presentation, Mr. Turnquist talked about the electric charging stations, how the one here is going to get replaced, and there's going to be an additional one placed at the town hall. So more to follow, more to report on that eventually. And the one at the library is going to stay for now because that's eventually going to be coming down with the library construction. So we had a discussion about going forward with the electric vehicle charging stations that we put in throughout town. And that's all I had. I don't know, Paul, if I missed something. No? Okay, Chris.
Just one thing, Mike. I had mentioned here, and I think, Paul, you had mentioned when I brought it up at the public works meeting that you were going to double check to make certain. Where are we at with outreach to the businesses, direct outreach to the businesses that are under whatever Turnpike Route 10? I know there was a general announcement, and remember we had talked about triple checking to make sure there was direct outreach to them.
Did the town itself send any?
Well, as I sent to all of you, we've been waiting to get the correct data for the traffic study, which is the question people were asking. As you know, I sent you the technical stuff that I had no idea. I couldn't understand it. So I'm still, Net and I are still waiting for the narrative from the DOT, because without the narrative, I can't understand it. Once we get that, then we can clarify what's happening.
But I just want to be clear. What I'm suggesting is we reach out proactively to all those businesses so they get a personal contact to know any information. Because I think a lot of times we assume we're all in the know, we try to stay on top of everything. That doesn't mean all the businesses necessarily are.
Right.
They're very busy, but they're doing.
Our original plan was obviously we were going to send out that narrative to them with contact information to our contact would be Annette Turnquist on it.
Okay.
But I wish I can say I received the narrative. I have not.
All right. But when you do,
Yep.
please, as long as
You know, the other thing, Chris, too, is that they might have heard from the state, but it's very important that they hear from us as well. I agree. Yeah.
just to let them know any type of meeting, any type of public hearing, anything. So
Right.
they can attend.
Very good.
Jack had a question.
Jack?
Madam Chair. Yeah, so I guess I have a question. Did we get any maps, updated drawings or anything that we could share?
From the
Because-
Route 10 322 piece,
Yeah.
I've received nothing.
Okay, because I reached out one of the businesses over there that owns a bunch of property, and that's what they're really interested in seeing is you kind of could see something small, but they want to see a little bit more of the detail of what's kind of happening. And again, I want to mention it here that, you know, the informational session that the state held, I asked the question when the last traffic study was done. They said 2017, and then I guess now they sent a different traffic study. So I'd be still curious on what 2017 and compare it to 2020. I think is what they said.
2020 or
So
2019.
again, they mentioned the soonest or the latest one was 2017. So I think it'd be important to look at both 2017, 2020. Yes, we know COVID was happening in 2020, but it may be able to allow us to look at what the traffic patterns are kind of looking like over there. And I wouldn't even be opposed to having our own consultants break down those traffic studies because let's be real, anybody could skew any data into the way that they want it to be seen. You know, it's like a different language. I saw it and it's very confusing. So I think we should get our own consultant to look at it and give us the actual feedback and make sure that, again, if they're going to remove that bridge, it's not going to cause a quality of life issue because this is a project the state's paying for. So I want to make sure that, you know, the state is holding up their end of the bargain and making sure that, you know, what's best for Southington's happening. And then as far as the sidewalks, I just think that, again, we just have to continue that conversation with the community and try finding a way that, you know, Mr. Shota stated that there's an extra $250,000 budgeted towards the sidewalk. So I think it's just important that we continue that communication with the community because, again, if residents don't want to take care of sidewalks, we don't want to also impose those on them. But if they're concerned of safety in front of their house or their business and there is no sidewalks, again, we don't have unlimited funds. So I think we try finding those areas in town that could help with improvement of safety.
Definitely worth the discussion. I
Yeah,
agree.
good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's it for me.
Thank you so much. Let's move on to Ordinance Committee. Bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we actually had a busy agenda. It was 2 Wednesdays ago. We took up 2 potential ordinances. I'll just speak briefly on them. The town attorney can supplement. The first was a smoking ordinance, which is essentially reactionary legislation based on the Connecticut legislature legalizing recreational marijuana. So what that did was essentially create the legal oddity where you couldn't smoke tobacco or drink alcohol on the trail or in a park, but you could smoke recreational marijuana. So this kind of closed that loophole. I didn't view it as, particularly, going after recreational marijuana, just more reactionary. The second one was our fire department fee schedule, which Assistant Chief Heath is here. He can speak later on when we send it to, or we vote for, send it to a public hearing. But really how I view that is that, we had a fee schedule which really may not have reflected the time spent by the fire department. So it's not fair to the fire department. It might not be fair to the applicant. So this kind of balanced off the scales on both of those. So I'll let him speak later on. If anyone has any questions about that, I'm happy to answer them right now.
So we have 2 ordinances, well, actually 1 ordinance and 1 fire department fee schedule. Any questions on any of them that you might want to ask Bill at this juncture? Yes, go
Not really a
ahead.
question, just a comment. So Bill, I actually view it, you said it's reactionary. I would say it's the smoking ordinance is more proactive.
Proactive.
Because we're just trying to, maybe we're not reacting to something because it hasn't happened yet. We're trying to be proactive because we already banned all these other substances and now it's just modernizing it for
Right.
the state language. So, and I do think it's important. Those are areas where children are present quite often. So it's important that we update that to include.
Madam
Yes.
Chair? Yeah, and just as Councilman Perry stated, this ordinance is the same as for alcohol and other tobacco products. So for the public that's not reading the technical language in the ordinance, we're across the board consistent with tobacco, alcohol, and cannabis products. So I think that's a fair policy to have for town-owned facilities and parks, and private residents and landowners. They're still free to make the decisions that they deem fit for their property. So
That's really important because I've had a number of people that live in condominiums or very close by neighbors, and they've asked questions. If you live in a condo, your condo association is the one that would handle this for your condo association. And so I think the work that went into this was really very good. I apologize I wasn't able to make the last meeting, but that we're in line with state mandate and also that umbrella that makes up for the loopholes, like, you know what I'm saying? So I'm very pleased with it. Thank you, Bill, for all of your work and the committee's work on that.
I should note that it was a unanimous vote also.
Yeah, and it was unanimous.
At committee
That's
level.
wonderful. That's great. Okay, great. If there's no further questions, let's move on to item C, Library Building Committee. Jim?
Hi, Madam Chair. We had a meeting again last week, and we are right now at a transition phase, I would say. We're in informational gathering mode. Keep an eye out for any kind of public outreach sessions that there might be. I would encourage anyone that has an idea of anything that they want to see incorporated in the design or offering of our library to either let the librarian know or the board or myself or pretty much anyone involved in the process. We are visiting some recently renovated libraries around the state to get ideas of how we can do some modern concepts and modern things. And we're very early in the phase. So you'll hear probably a bunch of things going on. They're going to target specific groups and audiences, as well as the kids at school, et cetera. You get a well-rounded idea of what everybody wants in that library, young, old, and in between. And that's pretty much where we're at.
So will you be scheduling actual listening sessions?
There will be outreach sessions basically sponsored by the architect,
Excellent.
I think in conjunction with the library board.
I think it's very important. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, Madam Chair. So just a couple, to start off with a couple questions. With inflation rising, that kind of brings rising costs and, building supplies and fuel and all that. Is it being addressed with the committee? I mean, kind of staying ahead of it and,
So we have a charge, Val, and the charge is to go from 21,000 square feet to 29,000 square feet. And in that change, to incorporate the library of the future. So, you know, the word on the street, so to say, is we can't build 29,000 for the budget that we have. But I keep challenging, saying, how do you know? Because we don't know what we're going to build yet. We don't know if we're going to build a big glass building or a big block building or a long block building. We don't know what it's going to look like, what it's going to be shaped like. We don't know about topography on the land. So we have basically a two-prong, well, I think we have a two-prong process there. One is that we need to really understand exactly what we're going to try and offer in that building space, and then how we deliver that. So in other words, we may need 35,000 square feet like Westbrook because their population says that we need X amount of space for each person. The Library of the Future, I believe, is going to be a library that's convertible and modular and has a lot of different options in flexible spaces. And so again, we need to look at what's the most economical way to build that 30,000 square feet that gives us the flexibility to do all the programming and then even more programming later in the future. So in the old days, you used to design a library around the number of books you wanted to store and then the number of seats and desks you wanted to have. Today, that's not how libraries are designed or built. So it's a good question, because the question is, can you build a 29,000 square foot commercial building for $16.9 million? And the answer is we don't know yet. And again, the charge is to deliver the services that we provide now at the very minimum, but obviously we want more. So we need to look at how do we provide those services in a space that's buildable in the budget. And also, by the way, there are methods of construction that are more desirable than others. There are building materials that are not available or that doubled in price, and there are other alternatives. So once we kind of decide what the space needs to look like and feel like, then we can look at what materials we can use, and then we'll be able to tell you if we can make the budget or not. And again, I have to say we will make the budget. The question is, will we be 29.9 or will we be 27.8, or what's the physical size going to be? But the architect is constrained by the budget, and he's also constrained by what the people in Southington want in that building.
Okay, so I don't think you answered my question. I'm glad you went through all that. We just have a lot of rising costs right now, so I'm asking, that's being considered, if your committee is talking about that. And I'm also concerned because I'm hearing that the proposal we had put out was for a 29,000 square foot building, and now there seems to be pushback on that. So that's a little concerning as well. And I had a follow-up question. I know Councilman Palmieri has some questions. Why was the meeting for this week canceled?
That was at the request of the architect, actually. They wanted to go to monthly meetings versus the biweekly meetings because they want to have time to do outbreak sessions.
Okay, so go ahead, Chris. I know you have the questions to ask.
So I guess it relates, especially Jim, when you're saying, talking about the budget and how tight everything is. It was reported to us, and I don't know, that's why I want to find out, that the State Library Board is investigating our project and that we're in jeopardy of potentially losing the $1 million grant. I think, Mark, you were aware of some of this too. So
It's not, what question was where we are with the design process. And this question is, we're not at the design process yet. We're still at the input process. So I wasn't obviously, and that's handling my part of that meeting, but to the best of my knowledge, the architect is still in the investigatory process. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
That's what Christy and I reported back to the state.
And I'd like to comment also, just so we're all clear, that it was agreed that we were going to start over again. So the plan we got from Tepe 2 years ago was a preliminary swag at what we would need to build a library. That is not our plan. So we are going to do a new plan to fit our space and budget and our programming.
Right. So having served.
Chris, could you repeat what you just said before? Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, that we're in jeopardy of potentially losing the $1 million grant. And
Is there something in writing that says that, or is that just like what?
There is.
there's
Yeah, we have a
Can
number
we
of
is that
emails.
part of our record tonight? Will you submit that?
We can
Yeah,
submit it if you want.
I mean, but again, the town manager was aware of.
Well, can I make a
Very
comment?
simple, it was forwarded to me by Christie, I forwarded it to the building committee.
The comment was extremely premature. So in other words, the language in the contract from the state library board says that if we make a deviation on the sides of more than 10%, we have to notify them in writing why we did it and what the ramifications are. Or if we change the programming functionality of the library by more than 25%, which again, I just told you, we don't even know what we're going to do, right? I don't say we don't know what we're going to do. We have a lot of things to crush
Yeah.
to get to a point where we can even say, this is what it will look like. This is what the square footage is going to be. And this is the services that we're going to provide. And quite frankly, I have to say that based on the research that I've been doing about library construction and new futuristic designs, the state of Connecticut should be really happy that we're doing what we're doing, because we're going to probably provide a lot more service for a lot less money than a conventional library would provide.
Can I ask a question?
It's similar, Chris and I both served on school building committees. Similar to that. What happens is you do a schematic plan, you go to referendum, you get that approved. Remember, you go to the school facilities committee, you present that. During the process, as each development goes process, you do timetables. You have to go up to school facilities. In our case, Mr. Romano or Fred Cox went up there, and each step of the way they go up. My understanding is very similar to that. We aren't at a design process yet, so we're still in the input.
So again, to clarify, and again, Bill, that's why we were taken aback by the school, because we weren't notified officially. That's why I'm a little upset that potentially this is being talked about.
But we all got the email, we all got the clarification email that was forwarded by the town manager, is what you're saying? Are you saying that you got a communication? What's the communication that you
I
have?
sent the email to the chair and vice chair of the building committee.
I'm sorry, what's the communication that you have? The communication you have says that we're under investigation, is what you said?
It's
And
being
that we're in jeopardy.
It's being reviewed.
Okay, so we're not under investigation. I just want to clarify, because that's what you said. And you also said that we are in jeopardy of losing the funding. Is that
That's what was reported to me, yes.
what it says, Val, in the memo that you have? That we're in jeopardy of losing the funding?
That we could possibly.
Does it say we're in jeopardy of losing the funding? Because what
That
I
it's
understand
being
is that if there's a submission, that we have to resubmit, and of course, during a resubmission, there's always a reevaluation process. Now, I will say that the calendar house, for example, we made multiple submissions of the plans that we did get a grant for. So this is not an unusual step. So I want to make sure that we're positioning this property. We're not in jeopardy, and we're not under investigation.
Well, they're questioning it. The state library board is questioning it.
But I'm not sure why they would.
Well, I'm not sure either. It's,
Like to finish, like I was trying to explain. So what was explained to me, which is why I'm asking publicly, so that we all are on the same page. And that's what I was trying to state.
Okay.
What was explained is that we have every right as a town to not go with the same architect that did the preliminary design. I have no problem if that's what we decide to do. But there is obligation to report that to the state within a certain number of days of the change.
But Chris, the words matter. I'm sorry to interrupt, but the words matter. You're saying that we're under jeopardy, and you said that we're in jeopardy of losing the funding.
Or
You do.
have the floor.
You do, Chris.
So my point is, that's why I'm trying to communicate it publicly to all of us, because I did not know that the grant is currently under review, and this is sent from someone from the state of Connecticut.
Right.
That's what I'm stating. That's why I'm bringing it up here. I don't know anything more than that.
Yeah.
That's why I want it on the record.
And you have a right
Like
to
I
ask
said, I
that.
think we have every right, if we want to change the town, the architect, but we have to follow the parameters of the state guidelines.
Christie's been doing a great job. Once we sign the contracts, with the construction manager, right? That's when we signed already. That Christie sent that right to the state. We have not finished the contract with the architect yet. So once that's done, I forget the time period, 10 days or whatever, Christie will send that up. So we have been following those. We also have to file in Waterbury, we have to file with EOC, and she's been doing that. She's doing an excellent job filing stuff for us.
Yeah. And I
So what
think- I
they're-
think-
what-
excuse me one second.
Okay,
Val.
go
I
ahead.
think what we've heard here is that, it's premature at this point in time to worry about that, because we're not at that point. There will be a difference. There will be a different plan, and when that's done, that's when it will go forward,
Well,
right?
not the final plan. What happens
Not
is
the final
there'll be
plan, but
steps as we go through each steps, and the state has to get a copy of each step we go through. If they object to it, then they'll say why they object to it. And then the building committee has to make a decision at that time. Do they concur with the state or do they not concur with the state? And if they don't concur with the state has the right to say, you haven't concurred with us, you haven't followed your grant document of, I forget the percentage Jim talked about. Then the state can say, if you continue down this path, you may not.
You may not get the
$1 million.
funding.
Here's, I'll read this into the record. This follows, I think, what we're talking about. So this is from the state. She works for the state library. The issue is that the town of Southington submitted a construction grant application with a design and plan. This is the plan for which the state library board awarded the grant and the state bond commission released funding. If the town of Southington is seeking a new design, which again, we have every right to, it is not the plan that was approved. And that's why it's being reviewed, investigated, whatever. Because I want to make sure that we are not in jeopardy of losing the $1 million. That's the point. So again, to Bill's reaction, we were just made aware of this too. We did not know.
But this, will you submit that as part of the record?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just,
Thanks.
you can send that one down.
Great. Okay.
Madam Chair?
So I think we've discussed it. I think it's
Well,
been.
Madam Chair, I'd like to say a few words because I was on the
Please, I'm talking right now, Jack, and I'll be glad to allow you to speak in just a second. But I think that it's been very clear what's going on. I feel comfortable in what the committee's doing at this point. Mark, you feel comfortable at this juncture?
Like anything else, when it gets sent to us, by my office, we sent to the building committee. Jim and I talked briefly about it. The fact of the matter is that we are in the very early stages. The architect in this particular case is in the early stages. So if the building committee, with the recommendation of town council, wants to keep moving forward step by step, using the parameters, the 10% parameter, the 40, whatever parameter it is, that's fine. If the building committee comes to the town council and says, there's a valid reason we want to differentiate from this, then you have two choices. You can try and modify the grant, or you can say, no, I don't want to go get the grant and reapply for it.
Yeah.
Those are the choices on it. It's not much different than we do well, it's not any different than we do in the schools or the calendar house. So in this particular case, I want to make sure everyone understands, we don't have a plan yet.
Right.
We understand how we understand we applied for the grant with a plan. You have to. You have to have schematics, just like you can't go to referendum without schematics. The fact is that if the building committee, in its wisdom, as times go on, talking with the construction manager and the architect, wish to modify for whatever reason, they submit those modifications to the state. The state has every right to say, that's more than 20%, that's more than 30%. Then we, the building committee and the town council, have to make a decision and say, you know what? We could save the money this way by doing it this way, or we do want to stay with the state grant. And that's up to the building committee and the council.
Thank you, Mark. And I just want to also go to the town attorney, and you would concur with Mark on this process and where we are right now?
I can say I haven't read the document that's been
Right.
discussed.
Okay.
But my understanding of the process right now, with the documents, the contracts have been signed, is in agreement with Mr. Schumer.
Great. As long as we're going in the right direction. Jack, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So I guess I've been just kind of, listening to everybody's thoughts and comments, and I've obviously, I served on the planning committee for the library. And I think, again, we have to be very careful because when we went to referendum, we sold an idea, a drawing, a concept to the community. So I get things change. I've been part of a lot of projects within my own organization, and it's got to stay somewhere close. So that's, again, just my echoing my concerns is that we need to make sure that what we sold to our community is kind of there. I get it that, the future of the library is more demanding than book storage. It's more of a community center. And that's why, having a bigger facility is very important, having flex space, all that. So I just kind of want to just go on the record on that. And again, I got this email today as well. And, Mark, if you receive any other important information like this, and it's $1 million. So percentage-wise, this is big. If you could please share it with the entire council so that I'm not blindsided 5 minutes before a council meeting about this, because I have not read all this either. But the first paragraph, I'll read it to you. It says, as the town is considering a new library architect and a potential redesign of the entire library project, keep in mind that our library construction grant of $1 million was awarded on the basis of the application that was submitted. As you know, the project changes. You must notify the state library following these procedures from the grant timetable and guidelines, section 9, paragraph 21. So I started skimming through this, but there's a lot here, but $1 million is also a lot as well. So this is not a small dollar amount. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I would like to move on if that's all right.
I just have one follow-up for the town manager on that topic. Mark, can you please, that's dated June 9th from the state to the state librarian, but it's not clear if the state has an objection that's being investigated, or if somebody like the librarian reached out to the state and asked a question, and then that's a clarifying remark. Can you please find out from the librarian if the dialogue was initiated from us asking a question, or if it was the state had heard about the issue, and if they have some concerns that we're not following policy? I'd like to have the answer to that, please.
I think what prompted it was, I think maybe Mr. Morelli can speak to that at the event that he attended last week in New York. You
That
attended
prompted
it?
what?
That may have prompted this. I think conversations that you had with people in New York at an event.
Let's have the town manager find out.
Well,
So
I'd like to find out if there was a communication from our side to the state before we received that, please.
State itself.
I would like to know if the town, a staff member from town initiated a request to the state to send that, or if the state has a concern based on something that they heard. I'd like to understand so that we understand the context of the memo that was provided to us in the record.
I spoke to the librarian, I did not speak to state.
Well,
Madam Chair,
yes,
for transparency, I just want the public to know that I spent a day of vacation time of mine last Thursday to go to New York City for an all-day seminar on library design. And I paid $85 for the seminar out of my pocket. I parked on my own money, and I'm not asking for reimbursement. I went for my own knowledge and information. And I did share some of the information that I got back with a few people, nothing formally. But in no way or any other time did I say that I wanted to change dramatically the design, shape, cost, value of the library. My only concern is and always will be that we make a building that provides as many services as possible for the money that we have to build the building. But the most efficient, economical way to build on that property for the future of the town of Southington.
okay, thank you so much.
So can I just ask, Mr. Morelli, you at that event, didn't make any disparaging remarks about the building plan or about Tape Architects?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Okay, just let's have that on the record.
Okay, let's move on and,
Open space.
yeah.
Letter D?
I'm still thinking about Val's last remark. But anyway, okay, yeah, item D, open space, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A few great things to report on open space. The summer CSA with Leaf is open, and people can purchase their summer CSA online at the Leaf website. So please go there if you're interested in getting locally fresh vegetables, flowers, etc. Also, you're going to see some maintenance going on in some of the current open space that we have where we're working with Farm Heritage. So you'll see haying operations that are starting now that the fields are starting to be tall enough to be hayed. So in the coming month or so, you'll see some activity there. We are working on an active repair of some damage from before we repaired the roof at Leaf. So more to follow there. There was a leak that needs repair. And then we have a great new facelift at Grosky Barn, as we reported last year. We do have a couple farmers who are working there and installing a new fence and are going to be bringing animals to that site here in the months ahead. So that's really starting to come together at the Grosky. They're looking at sheep.
Okay.
Yeah. Goats. I'm sorry, not sheep. Goats. And then the last thing is more to follow, but we're planning for later this year a scavenger hunt in the open space parcels, where we're trying to get people to go out and use the trails and find some interesting things along the way. So more details, that's a little bit of a teaser, but more details about the scavenger hunt on the open space trails in the future. And Jim and Chris, if there's anything else that you wanted to add?
Just one other positive thing. Remember we had talked about this solar project at Leaf.
Yep.
They're in the final stages of construction. Remember, there's two barns there. This is not on the new barn that we just replaced, but on the previous roof that we replaced. So they're finishing up construction and working now with Eversource to tie Leaf into the grid ASAP. So very positive thing for the town.
Very good. Thanks, Chris. Very good. Any questions for open space? Anything at all? Oh, we're all set. Okay, thank you. Apple Harvest Festival?
Madam Chair, the Apple Harvest meeting from last week was canceled. We will be meeting again in July.
Okay.
Thank you.
Chris, you okay with that? I want to make sure. Economic Strike Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had our meeting on June 8th. Only a couple of items to report. The lion's share of that meeting took place in executive session, so we're not at liberty to discuss it. So Ms. Edwards, from the Director of Planning and Community Development, Ms. Edwards, mentioned that portion of a parcel on West Street was changed from the West Street Business Zone in order to expand a factory off of West Queen Street. And Mr. Perillo stated that, there's currently site searches happening in town. We've got a good problem that, businesses want to come to town. We just don't have the inventory. So we're trying to come up with some plans to try to seek out new property in town where we can accommodate some of the businesses that want to be here. Kind of in vain to what we were talking about earlier about expenses. We did lose a couple of projects because expenses have just risen to the point, they're on hold right now. We're hoping they're not going to get completely canceled. But, prices that were quoted a year and a half ago, now it comes time to dig the hole and prices are tripling. So we're in big trouble there. So hopefully the economy can kind of stabilize itself back and we can get some of these projects off the ground. And Mr. Perillo is also working on a new steep grant that the state of Connecticut is offering. They kind of changed the rules a little bit. So we're trying to figure out a way to try to nail down some state money, some state grant money for some of the projects that we have happening. And that was basically it. I'm not sure if anyone has any questions. I know Councilman Perry was there. I don't know if I missed anything, Jack.
No, you did a great job. I think, again, that the projects coming in double, triple, it was a big eye opener. I've been seeing it myself. And again, it's unbelievable.
Maybe I heard it wrong, but it was like $100 a ton
For asphalt.
for asphalt.
And it
it's gone up
doubled.
to $240, like in like a 3-week period, from $100 a ton to 240. So
In what period of time?
in like a couple of weeks.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So it's a problem for many facets of government. So hopefully we'll be able to right the ship sometime
Yeah,
soon.
it just makes me think about paving contractors. They're going to end up slowing down. And what does that do to their businesses? Because people can't afford to put a new driveway in,
Right.
so just scary to see costs rising like that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam
everybody.
Chair.
Thank you so much. Let's go on to sewer. Bill, can you help?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we have two items on tonight. The first, we took action on the bid recommendation for the Old Turnpike, Patton Brook, and Judd Brook pump stations, which Kari Williams is here tonight. He knows significantly more about pump stations than I do. So maybe when we take action on it, if you have any questions, you can ask him instead of me. And then the second item, Tony Morrison, who's our Board of Finance designee to the Sewer Committee, has been working on a sewer fund reserve policy. So instead of me talking about it, again, he knows a lot more about financial policy, Madam Chair. I think he's here to present tonight. I don't know if you want him presenting right now in connection with this or in connection with the, I think, town manager's
Now would be the time.
Yeah,
grabbing his pen
I would
right
think so.
now.
Tony, can you come forward and just talk about this, please?
Tony, can you keep it under 15 minutes, please?
Thank you, Bill. Madam Chair, councillors, 5-minute view of the policy. We've been, ever since I joined the committee as the Board of Finance rep about 5 years ago, just as the as a sewer plant was going under rehabilitation and the phosphorus upgrade. And at the time, the financial issues there were sort of put aside until that plant was finished, in the sense of things like what's the correct rate structure, what's the correct fund reserve that we should keep, and what do we do with the excess? Okay, so we kept that, we put it aside, but as it went on, and we had a fund balance at the time of about $5 million, $5 or $6 million. Then as the years went on, while the plant was being done, we ended up with a fund reserve balance of about $9 million. And
Hang on one second, Tony.
Mr. Robert.
He's talking to him. He's got it, George. Thank you. Thank you, Tony. Please.
We okay? Okay, so we ended up with $8 or $9 million because the the sewer fund reserve is essentially it grows in exactly the same way that the town reserves does. Only instead of using ratepayer money, we're using ratepayer money instead of taxpayer money. So it grew to about $8 or $9 million. So a couple of years ago, as the plant it was obvious there wasn't going to be too many emergencies there that we would need excessive reserves for. Project was on time. The change orders were all within the 5% contingency that we had. So we looked at, okay, there's ratepayer money sitting here that we're probably not going to need for fund reserves. So let's use it. So for the last 2 years, as you've noticed, we've been using it for the lining project, about $2.5 million, this year and last year. So anyway, the plant's finished. We still have a decent fund reserve. Again, it was about $9 million, I think, when we looked at this. So we determined what's the correct fund reserve for the sewers in this town. So the first thing the staff did was go out and look at other sewer plants and see how much they had in their reserves. But there was no pattern. You've essentially got Cheshire has 1.5 million, Wallingford has 9 million. There's no pattern. It's all across the board. And it seems to be just how specific towns and their sewer department wish to carry a risk. So we created our own. It's essentially the fund reserve that we thought was needed. We actually took the advice of Chiari Williams, who's here tonight, and he suggested a year's money equivalent to an operational budget. And that was what his comfort level was. So we went with that. The fund reserve that you see in front of you actually defines it as 100% of the current year's operational budget, which means essentially that it will grow as hopefully as inflation grows. We won't need to address this again. So that's what's in front of you tonight to approve based on the recommendation of the Sewer Committee and the Board of Finance.
Thank you very much.
Do you want to just very briefly, policy was developed by the manager and director of finance. It's a policy it harmonizes with our other fiscal policies. It has every contingency we could possibly think of is in here in case anything would happen. We know how to replenish it. We know how to grow it. And we know how to spend the funds accordingly. Okay.
Thank you so much, Tony. Before you leave, Val or Bill, do you have any other further questions or any clarification you want to make?
I just wanted to say that thank you, Tony, for presenting this. It was I know Kari and staff looked at other towns, and there's really no consistency. It doesn't appear that what to do with these fund balances. So this is really something that I think the staff looked at, the sewer committee looked at. So definitely it was I'm sure it was unanimous. I wasn't at the.
Yeah, it was.
But yeah.
Very good. Thank you, Tony, very much. Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead.
I have one. Yeah, thank you to the entire sewer committee and town staff as well. I had one question for the council and town staff to ponder this evening, and that is the drawdown of the floor. There's a bullet point in there that I want us to talk about here for a second. It says to be used for emergency situations approved by a majority of the town council. What comes to mind for me is, tonight is Monday. What if there's an emergency on a Tuesday and we're not going to be meeting for another 2 weeks? How is that going to work, operationally from the town standpoint? And then how are we going to, approve it?
Similar to what we did, some of you may remember when we had the emergency on Meriden Avenue, when Meriden Avenue collapsed. We didn't email to the council. The council gave me the authority to spend, in that case, several millions of dollars to fix that. So that would be an email. If the technicality, we also have an emergency We can do an emergency meeting as part of your bylaws. But usually I send an email out, ask for emergency authority to do that. So that's what I was thinking, obviously, in an emergency situation. If it could, with next day, then we can have an emergency meeting. I believe it's 5 hours to have an
Gotcha.
emergency meeting.
That's good. And then obviously it would be discussed at the next regular meeting as well. So, okay.
Very
Thank
good.
you. That's all I had.
So much.
Also, technically, the charter gives me life safety decisions I can make immediately.
Very good. Thank you so much. Let's move right into the town manager's report. Mr. Wood.
Speaking of the Board of Finance, the Board of Finance minutes are in front of you. A couple areas I'd like to go over. Actually, Bill already talked about this, but the Board of Finance approved the authorization to use ARA money for the 3 pump stations. I'm happy to say that I know that people are hearing nightmare stories about bidding. We are only about 10% over on each one, our estimates. So if you look at it, I think it was, we estimated it was going to be $2.8 million. It came in at $3.1 million. That includes the contingency. So it wasn't as bad as I had feared. So it's a little bit better. That being said, the Board of Finance approved it for the ARA money. And of course, there's separate votes for you that you need to take tonight. We also discussed the Board of Education account. For those of you, refresher, the Board of Education comes to us in June of every year, and they ask for a non-lapsing number not to exceed 2% of their budget. We won't know what the funding number is until they close their year, because they don't know what their funding number is yet. So usually at the August or September meeting, the Board of Education will come to us with X amount of dollars, not to exceed 2% of their budget. Remember, their budget's $100 million. So that being said, then at the same time, they give us a list of what they want to use for. And we expect, obviously, we expect that at the August or September meeting. Questions on the Board of Finance minutes?
I hear none. Go ahead.
From the Board of Finance standpoint, we took 3 separate votes, but you don't have to take 3 separate votes because they're doing the line items. But we have the 3 pump stations. I just talked about the pump, the Old Turnpike Road, Patton Brook, and Judd Brook. Now, that'll now put us in a very good position. The last 3 pump stations that we have in our capital plan. Remember, our capital plan originally had a 7-year program for our pump stations. With the ARA money, the council and the Board of Finance, through a recommendation from staff, we shortened that to the time period within the ARA money. So that's why we're going to be doing these 3 pump stations. As I mentioned, all of them would be going to C.H. Nickerson, and the number would be $3,301,890, which includes the 5% contingency. Questions? And we have used Nickerson before. Questions? We are going to have a brief executive session for open space purposes, and there'll be no action outside of executive.
Thank you. Questions for the town manager?
Just a quick question, Madam Chair. So, Mark, I know you included the overall plan
Yep.
for the funds. This is going to be fine, even with the additional.
Yeah, what I did is, as
You
I said.
you updated it.
Exactly.
right?
As I do every time, we do this because obviously we gave estimates. Now the bids come in.
Right.
So when you see the red numbers, that means they're numbers I actually have now. So what we do is rotate around. So in this particular case, I offset it by using the top line for the MS4, which is money I already have in my budget to use for MS4 money.
Yep.
So that's not an issue. We should still be able to do everything we want to do with the ARF money.
Right, thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Anybody else have any questions for the town manager? Let's move on to the town attorney's report. Alex, if you would.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 2 items tonight. The first is going to be the official report back from the first final draft from the Charter Revision Commission. In your packet, you have it. There was one change that was sent back to you. It was one of the charges that this council sent over. And that is a change to section 284 of the Southington Town Charter. It's the library. It expands and clarifies the management of the library, the functions of the library, and it's in your packet. I will talk about the procedures after we get through all the reporting. I will let you know that I did hear back from Bank of America, who's the trust officer for the Barnes Trusts. They have no concerns less the language that is in front of you tonight. So that, I know that was a big deal. That had to be signed off before anybody took action. You also have a summary of the charter revision discussion and debate. That is not a part of the official report. That is just a summary prepared so the public and the town council knows the charges that were sent to them, how they were discussed and talked about. And also there's one additional discussion point that was brought up from members of the commission. That's there as well. They took no action on that. We do have a few Charter Revision Commission members in the audience tonight. The chairman's here as well. I know he's going to speak in public session. Where we go from here is the town clerk received the report on May 31st, 2022. You have to hold your last public hearing, and you have to have a minimum of one, but you have to have your last public hearing no later than July 15th of this year. So that's what we're doing next. And I believe there's an item on your agenda to schedule that public hearing. And I believe it's being suggested for your next meeting. You can't take any formal action until you have that public hearing. You get the public's feedback. Are there any questions on where we go?
May I ask you just for clarification, once the public hearing is done, would we be free to vote on just or not? Charter Revision Committee that evening?
You are able to, and you can, there's two ways. You can accept it. Commission, or you can accept it by not doing anything at all. If you don't do anything at all within 15 days of that public hearing, it will be deemed accepted, and it's going to go into final at that point.
Somebody's trying.
Maybe not.
And if this,
It's your voice.
if this town council decides they don't want to accept that report, you are going to have to send it back to the Charter Revision Commission and send them a list of recommendations for them to send back. They will debate that again. But that's right now, let's just focus on next meeting. You're gonna have your public hearing, and then you can decide how you want to go, and then we'll dictate how we go based on your decisions.
Any questions of the town attorney?
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So just as a clarification, if we have questions on the language, so the way it's written, we can't do that tonight.
No, you have to.
We have to
public
just,
hearing.
we have to wait until the next meeting.
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
Just a comment.
Yeah?
Just, I did attend a few of the Charter Revision Committee meetings, and I just wanted to thank the committee. I don't know if there'll still be follow-up work, but I wanted to thank them so far for what they've done. There seemed to be a lot of good dialogue, mostly alignment, I would say, from, at least from what it was observed in the public meetings, and, we'll see how it goes from here.
One of the things I thought was very good, and I want to just commend the chairman of Charter Revision, was that it was a very respectful dialogue on nearly everything. I would say on everything. I didn't see anything different than that. And so anyway, I want to thank you, Mark, very much for heading it up. And any other questions? Go ahead.
I have one more item,
Yes.
Madam Chairwoman. That is also in your packet. It's a proposed update to the town council policies and procedures that was most recently revised earlier this year. And it's added to the end, and I believe Mr. Palmeri originally brought this up, and it has to do with flying banners on the town hall.
Yep.
And the Supreme Court decision that came down recently allows there to be government speech, but there has to be a procedure in place to keep it clear and concise. The proposed policy gives the town manager discretion on hanging banners that are for two reasons. One, they have to be in connection with a town employee, official town employees, or two, in connection with an official sponsored event, so like the Apple Harvest Festival. It gives the town manager discretion as to timing and the banners themselves. And that's in front of you. And you're more than welcome to discuss those policies and procedures before voting on them.
Okay. Any question to the town attorney on the banner policy?
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
I don't have a question on the policy on the banner. Me and Attorney Riccadone, we chatted, and then he sent me an email in regards to Robert's Rules of Order. There may be a conflict in our current policy and procedures that does not follow Robert's Rules of Order that we adopted, which is when somebody is speaking or has the floor, there's a debate continuing. The only way that that debate could end, or the discussion could end, is a motion, a second, and then a 2/3 majority. So me and Riccadone, because at a meeting I wasn't presented or allowed to continue to ask a question or have a dialogue, we move forward. So Attorney Riccadone mentioned that we may want to, do that. So it may be best to include that in this as well, of how we want our meetings to.
That just to clarify what Mr. Perry's talking about, Robert's Rules of Order concerned ending debate on general discussion. The town council rules and procedures, when it comes time to calling the roll, someone can, that trumps the Robert's Rules of Order. So I'm more than happy to provide proposals or to try to give you language that matches the official rule.
I think it would be good if we saw the language, and then we can always add it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or whatever,
Not
if
tonight.
we feel, not tonight, but if we feel it's appropriate and if it does clarify things for us, by all means,
And I'll
if you
send
don't
that
mind
to, I'll propose language to Mr. Perry, and we can work on it, and then you can send it to the chair. That
Perfect.
works for you?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. All right,
That's all I have, Madam
thank
Chairman.
you very much, Attorney Riccadone. So let's move on. Our next item is item 7, the public communication. We invite anyone from the public to come and give their name and address, and
George Roberts, 90 Applegate Road. Madam Chairman, I'm ready to pass out. I'm so cold. I'm also concerned about cost. That's why I'm here. It's 62 degrees in here. I would hope the town council will be more cost conscious of our energy costs. Councilman Perry, I have news for you. I have friends of Atlantic Richfield and Exxon Oil. I used to work for that company for many, many years. Crude oil as we know it will not drop below $3.50 a gallon at a 55-gallon barrel for at least 3 years. That's our energy costs, and that's the good news for you. Look at gasoline cost. As far as what our inflationary costs determine in regards to food, take a ride down Queen Street. Start looking at restaurants closing down. Plan B has already closed down, and that's going to be the first of many. There was an article in the Record Journal the other day. Chris, first of all, I want to address you. The Board of Education budget got passed, and the Board of Education said there were going to be no additional employees added to the Board of Education. You said already there have been 6 added. We got a guidance council, excuse me, I'm shaking.
I'm sorry.
We have a heavy guidance council department in the Board of Education. And now we go ahead and hire 6 new employees. We have a heady paraprofessional department. What are we doing? What are we doing? And now I read in the Record Journal this weekend that our superintendent of school wants to go to the COVID money and get COVID money to use to get grants for 2 years to go out and hire another 8 employees, which is for just 2 years. That's all the money is good for. Now, what's going to happen in 2 years from now when all these employers are sitting there and he's exceeded the budget? Ladies and gentlemen, we're living in a new world. What you're looking at with regards to inflation, Paul, support me on this. We're not looking at a whole new world here. We gotta have to look at wage freezes, cost cutting like you've never seen before. I've lived in industry for years. What are we gonna do? Our Democrats that we have in Washington have really put the screws to us. They have supported Nancy Pelosi and all the rest of them, this guy Biden. What have they done to us? It's rolling back on us. Whatever happened to state rights? How can a Connecticut adopt the same gun laws as Alaska, Montana, and all the rest of the states? This is state laws. Education is states. It's not federal government. Think about it. I ask you to think about it. Next on the list of my things, the football field at the high school, $8 million. Johnny Fontana built that field. He went out and got all the money for it. And it was agreed upon at that time that the town would not have to finance one dime towards that. It was the Gridiron Club and all the other volunteers that were going to support it. I'm going to predict right now that they're going to sign, like they did with the library. They're going to get a campaign out there and a petition. Now, the library. They got a petition up. We had a vote on it, and we voted upon an amount of money. That's what we voted for. That's all we voted for, was a vote for amount of money that we gave them. The state's going to give them so much money, and that's what we voted for. Not one dime more. Now, if they have to come back for an excess of 10%, that's over $1 million. They can't go spend over $1 million without approval for it. That's in our bylaws. That's in the town. Now, the last thing I want to say is this. We've got 6 elected Republicans here. You 3 are appointed. You didn't get elected. I got 8 elected.
Did you hear the?
I just said,
Shut him off.
I've got 8
Madam
or
Chair,
6 elected.
Point of order. Point of order, Madam Chair.
Just a
A
minute.
point of order
I
is
have the
I
floor.
got
Sorry.
3 appointed people here.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
George.
I stand
your
by
time out-
my 6 Republicans.
And I appreciate that, George, but
Thank you.
your time is done.
All right?
Thank you so
I
much.
hope you
And they
take into
turned-
account what I've said tonight. We got troubles.
Okay.
And I think it's in every department within this town.
George, I just want to let you know, we turned the heat up for you also.
You know, I know you did,
Attorney
but
Rickett-
what's going to happen in the future?
Okay.
Who's going to watch costs?
Yeah, we will.
Miss,
Well, I-
Madam Chairman, who's going to watch the costs? Because we're in trouble.
Thank you, George.
And I'm living on a fixed income.
I know.
Unbelievable.
Excuse me, Madam Chair,
yes.
just because we did correct his statement about, we also have 9 members of the town council who are elected,
That are elected.
not 6.
Yeah.
9 elected.
I understand. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you
Thank you.
for correcting.
Shame on you.
Okay, who's next who's going to speak tonight? Please give your name and address. And 5 minutes goes fast.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Paul, P-A-H as in Howard, L as in Lucy. I live at 408 Main Street, DiCaprio 4 Jones, Southington Housing Authority. I have 3 things that I would like to bring to your attention. And if you could please give me some guidance or maybe answer my questions, I would very much appreciate it. The first thing is the office. Teresa and Gail work there, and Gail's there on Mondays and Fridays, and Teresa's there part-time on Thursdays. And other than that, the office is usually closed, and they're still not allowing residents to come in to give them anything or anything like that. You have to put everything in the Dropbox. And then the second thing I want to bring up is the housing commissioners. I have to wonder, like, when do they come up for election again? And if someone else wanted to run, how does that work? And then there's an issue over at the property where I live with Building 2, Apartment 6. Some of you may be aware of that. And the former tenant still has not. Julie just today changed all the locks because the former tenant never turned in the keys for that apartment or for the mailbox, and has been going in and out of there, and I've been reporting it to Julie. Those are the 3 things I wanted to bring to your attention.
Thank you. And normally we don't go back and forth, but we're on the floor right now, and I would like you to know that you really need to talk with the Housing Authority. They are appointed by the council. And so when their term is up, the council, who's ever the majority on the council, will appoint people to that committee.
Yep.
And so, but if, Kathy, do you have the number of the chairwoman of the Housing Authority?
You're gonna want to get, unless it's on the website, just hand it to her as opposed to reading it out loud.
Yes, please do that, okay? We're going to give you her phone number, that the chairman of the Housing Authority, and you can discuss everything with her.
All right.
We don't have oversight of the housing, of public housing, but they do. They're able to work with that, and so if you just see the town attorney writing it up, Alex, he's going to give that to you. Okay, thank you so much for coming tonight. Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to address us this evening? Thank you, Mark.
Good evening, everybody. Madam Chair.
Good evening, Mark.
I just want to take a minute and thank the council for appointing all of us on the commission to take on a challenging task.
Excuse me, Mr. LaJoy, could you please give your name and address?
Mark LaJoy, 372 Kensington Road. Anyway, I'd like to thank the council for appointing us. It was a very humbling experience. As you know, it's difficult to please all parties with these types of challenges, but I believe we did our best to listen to all who came before us with an open mind. We debated the various issues and concerns in depth and tried our best to protect the overall integrity of the charter. I'd like to thank the other members of the commission for their efforts: John Barry, Tony D'Angelo, Ed Costello, and Jasper Williams. We had some very passionate debate on many of the issues, but I felt it was done very professionally and respectfully, and for that I want to personally thank the other commissioners. I'd also like to thank the town attorney for supporting our efforts. Alex was a big help in getting this done on time, and we appreciate that. I'd also like to thank the many residents and elected officials who took the time to come out and voice their opinions on all the issues. They too were respectful and professional, and we greatly appreciated that. So I'd like to just say thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Is there, oh, Richard's coming, okay.
Richard Cooper, 79 Barbara Lane. So just for the record, because I feel like I have to say it based on some interactions and emails I've sent to all of you recently. Like, I support the Southington police, and I always have. I think we have a very good police department. Just because, you know, and quite frankly, I won't get into it, but yeah, we have a good professional police department. And I would say, generally speaking, Southington does do a good job of being aware and conscious of constitutional rights. Generally, personally, I think we might have some misplaced values, but I think our town does a really good job. So yeah, I'm not as upset as it may have seemed like I was in emails and stuff I sent. So I apologize for being overzealous. I guess I just want to say, I don't know. I take what happens up here pretty seriously. But I worry that there's too much mistrust in government. Just generally speaking, we're seeing, you know, it's hopefully over now, but, you know, Board of Education meetings being battlegrounds for, you know, debates and ideas that maybe shouldn't have been happening there. That's just my opinion on it. Anyways, here, my main message is I think nihilism needs a counter, and that counter is the idea that we are all here for a purpose and that our lives are inherently meaningful. Another citizen once said up here that God is for everyone, and I agree with her. So just remember that this is a town, it's not a business, and there are humans here that do need services. And as bad as inflation's is, and as tough as things might get, we shouldn't cut money, to people who really need it. We need to be conscious that we're dealing with human beings. I was considering doing a whole other thing, but hopefully, yeah, I think that's my piece. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Is there anyone else? Hearing no one else, I'm going to close public communication. Thank you all for speaking this evening. Let's move right on. Action on Veterans Committee new member, and that is Liz Schubert, right, Mark?
Actually, Rachel Waukee has
Yeah.
asked that Liz Schubert be
right.
appointed to the Veterans Committee. She handles the, I guess, the sessions at the library,
Yeah.
the John DeMello breakfast sessions, and
Yeah.
she's very big into the Veterans Committee.
And
It's your appointment.
yes, and I would, if
Need a motion, Madam Chair, for that?
It's her appointment.
it's my appointment. I'm going to approve Liz Schubert if everybody's okay with that. I feel that she has proven herself over and over again to be a good and solid person on that committee. So thank you, Liz, for stepping up, and thank you, Rachel, for the recommendation. Okay, item B, scheduling a public hearing for our smoking ordinance.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to schedule a public hearing for our smoking ordinance as attached as part of our town council packet,
For
June
7th at 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
Thank you. Any discussion on it? Hearing no discussion, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Chaplinsky?
Yes.
Del Santo?
Yes.
DiPaolo?
Yes?
Dietzick?
Yes.
Lombardi?
Yes.
Morelli?
Yes.
Palmieri?
Yes.
Perry?
Yes.
Triano?
Yes, thank you, everyone. Item C, scheduling of public hearing for fire department fee schedule.
Make a motion to schedule a public hearing for June 7th at 7 p.m. for the fire department fee schedule.
I'll second, Madam Chair.
Oh,
Thank
go
you,
ahead.
Tom. I'm going to take your second. I heard you, Val. Let me
that's
just
okay.
give one to Tom. Chief, you're here. Before we get into discussion, I just want to give you an opportunity. Is there anything that you would like to say to us this evening, or
You're in the middle of a council motion.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, well, I have a second. So is there any discussion on the
I'm
motion?
sure the chief is just happy about you going forward with it.
Is that true, Chief? Okay, good. I want to make you happy. All right. Well, we'll see on the 27th.
That's when he's really going to talk on the
Yeah.
27th.
Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Chaplinsky?
Yes.
Del Santo?
Yes.
DiPaolo?
Yes?
Dietzick?
Yes.
Lombardi?
Yes.
Morelli?
Yes.
Palmieri?
Yes.
Perry?
Yes.
Triano?
Yes, thank you, everyone. Item D, action on sewer fund reserve policy.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the sewer fund reserve policy that is attached to our town council packet.
Thank you very
I'll
much.
second, Madam Chair.
Val is going to second that, okay? Excuse me.
Fine,
Mike.
please, go
Okay.
right ahead.
Very good. Well, we might as well call the roll.
Madam Chair, just real quick, I just would like to thank Tony Morrison, who's still here, for his effort on this policy.
Very good. Thank you so much. Let's call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Chaplinsky?
Yes.
Del Santo?
Yes.
DiPaolo?
Yes?
Dietzick?
Yes.
Lombardi?
Yes.
Morelli?
Yes.
Palmieri?
Yes.
Perry?
Yes.
Triano?
And I vote yes also. Thank you, everyone. Item E, action on the report of the Board of Finance.
Motion to approve the Board of Finance report as provided in our packet today.
Thank
Second,
you.
Madam Chair.
There's a second. I hear Michael over there. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any additions or anything? Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Thank you. Action on bid recommendation for Old Turnpike, Patton Brook, Judd Brook pump stations.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion on that we accept the bid recommendation as
Thank you. Do
submitted.
we need the amount?
Yeah, can I do this for ARPA purposes?
Yes.
It's, the recommended motion is C.H. Nickerson and Company, the amount of $3,301,890 for Old Turnpike Road Pump Station, Patton Brook Pump Station, and Judd Brook Pump Station, which includes a 5% contingency.
Is that all right, Val?
That's perfect.
Thank you so much. Do I have a second?
Second, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mike. All those,
Roll call, please.
let's, yeah, this roll call vote, right. Let's have a roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Chaplinsky?
Yes.
Del Santo?
Yes.
DiPaolo?
Yes?
Dietzick?
Yes.
Lombardi?
Yes.
Morelli?
Yes.
Palmieri?
Yes.
Perry?
Yes.
Triano?
Yes. Item G, scheduling a public hearing for the Charter Revision Commission report.
Motion to schedule a public hearing for Charter Revision Commission report for June the 27th at 7 PM.
A second, Madam Chair.
Okay. Madam Clerk, call.
Discussion.
Oh, yeah, any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Chaplinsky.
Yes.
Del Santo.
Yes.
DiPaolo.
Yes?
Edick.
Yes.
Lombardi.
Yes.
Morelli.
Yes.
Palmieri.
Yes.
Harry.
Yes.
Triano.
Yes. Item H, action on the town hall banner policy.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve.
Second, Madam Chair.
And I have a second by Jim. Okay, very good. Let's open up for discussion. Yes.
Oh, go, Chris, please.
First of all, I want to thank the town attorney. What was written here is basically the spirit of my initial conversation with the town manager and myself. The only thing I'm wondering is, if we think about coming up this summer, is there something we can put in here about festivals and celebrations that are approved, endorsed, whatever, by the town? Because like the Italian festival, I think that's appropriate. And this would restrict it. The apple harvest would be covered.
Correct.
Yeah.
But is there a way to say, because they have to apply for permits, they have to go through a process in order to get approval for any type of celebration and festivals in the town? So can we add language like that in here just to, because again, and I appreciate it because this is what we initially talked about, but reflecting on it, I do think it's important that, again, if a celebration gets approval, right? I mean, the Italian festival has to get approval to use Center Street. There's permitting, there's approval process. So is there a way to acknowledge that as well?
So the short answer is yes. There's nothing stopping that to be incorporated. The longer answer is that takes away, that gives the town manager much more discretion for any single event that's going to be held anywhere in Southington. But that's a decision that this council needs to make, how much discretion they want to give the town manager and what types of banners and displays want to go up. Does it have to be official town events, or do they want to start bootstrapping on other events that just run through town that may happen to be connected to town through a permit or a unofficial sponsorship?
Madam
Thank
Chair.
you, Chris. Yeah.
I have two comments. One in regards to Councilman Palmieri's comments. I would say that we leave the language alone and leave it as official town-sponsored functions or recognized town employees. And, you know, to Councilman Palmieri's points, there are several events that are approved by town staff, whether it be at the drive-in movie theater or whatever. That to some degree is a freedom that people have to use a public place. I don't think that we should, obviously we allow them to use the facilities and things like that, but I don't think we should get involved with the banner discussion on that. I think the way that it's written is good and it achieves what you intended. And my first comment before your comment was I was going to recommend that in the motion that we just specify that this wording is added to section 12C amendment. It's amendment to section 12C for the policy and procedures for town council meetings. So I would just ask that the motion be amended to specify where this addition is going to be placed.
And I know, I'm not sure if you're done, Mr. Palmer, but I did want to add one other thing. If you do give the town manager more discretion, you're going to start enabling some of that government speech arguments that the Supreme Court just talked about. And it's a slippery slope. If he or she starts approving some banners, I don't know where it would go. So as far as the constitutionality to protect the town from a lot of arguments and back and forth and possibly lawsuits, it's better to have it a little tighter. But again, you can do either way, or whatever this council wants to do can do.
And truly, I want to thank you because the intent, my initial concern was that a banner to recognize teachers, and Paul, I mean, you just did it tonight, to recognize teachers during Teacher Appreciation Week was denied. And I guess because we didn't have it formal. So this definitely does that. I was also concerned the apple Harvest Festival, which is run by the town of Southington.
Sure.
By that banner.
Sure.
This addresses that. But, you know, like, the Italian Festival banner has flown without incident when it's been run. So, again, there's permitting, there's an application process in order for the town to approve function like that. So that's my only reflection is there something we can put in about approved by the town, endorsed by the town?
My only issue with that is, and this is just for future managers, because this is obviously the more discretion, the more trouble managers get into. But certainly there's a lot of things. There are marches that are permitted by the police department. As the current manager and respecting future managers, I think that if down the road any council can change their own policy. So in this particular case, this gives what I think I was comfortable with. You and I talked about what I was comfortable with, because I do think this gives me the discretion, but also it's very tight. If we say something about anything that's permitted by the town, my fear is there's a lot of things permitted by the town. So that would open the future managers up to having to figure out, well, your march was permitted, your protest was permitted. So does that mean I put a banner up advertising your protest? So those are things I get concerned about. And I know it probably seems far-fetched, but in this current age we live in, maybe it's not as far-fetched. So I like the wording that you and I talked about, that was put codified into the.
And Madam Chair, if I may, my interpretation, I don't know how others feel, official town-sponsored function, recognized town employees. Clearly, town employees is pretty straightforward. An official town-sponsored functions, to me, seems like, we would have a subcommittee, of town officials and appointed members who may be working on something like the Apple Harvest Festival, and there's some direct funds, or the recreation department. And then there's some town funds that are spent on those as well.
So the sewer department can get a banner?
Public Works,
If you want to
sewer.
thank the sewer employees, but
Sorry, left. Sorry, left.
Any other
I just-
discussion? Yeah.
Just a couple questions.
Sorry, Jack.
But Tom, you had mentioned 12C. Are you talking about 12C in the policies and procedures?
Yes, because that's where the paragraph is going to be added. It's in blue.
Well, 12,
But there is
there is no 12, 12C is
Doesn't
town
it say
manager.
at the
I just wanted,
I-
thinking about,
It is.
It's in the amendments, actually, Tom.
Yeah.
It's
it on the
item,
amendment page, maybe?
Sorry.
The last page of the
The
amendment.
last
last
page.
page of the
Yeah.
amendments.
So if you go to the first page, I just lost
It's
it.
actually should be item 4 under decision of town council.
Doesn't it say amendment to section 12C? And then it,
Oh,
It
amendment to
dates,
section 12.
it dates
Yep,
the amendment,
yes,
so it's
okay,
actually
got
item
it,
1
got
of
it.
this amendment. Sorry about that.
but yeah, on the page prior at the top, it
So
says,
right here.
Yes, it says amendment to section.
that's where I read off.
12C.
And it
Okay.
adds it to the bottom of that.
Of the town council.
So it's going to be added to, so it'll be number 4.
Maybe, it
You know
says
what?
number 1.
The amendments actually they're dated, Val, so that's, see how they say the date and then
Oh,
their
okay,
number
got it.
stamped.
Yep.
Right.
You're a
So
step
it'll
ahead
just
of
be
us, Tom.
dated. It'll be dated today.
Tom's on it.
Okay. All right, and Jack.
Madam Chair, I just think that, since we're talking about the banner on the town hall, I just think that, not allowing sports teams or recognition of like the girls softball, I think maybe we should add that in there. So again, we're very supportive of our sports in our town. I think, again, recognizing them, I think, we mentioned this evening about doing a proclamation. So that would be my only, feedback is, adding that maybe in the language that, again, we're recognizing at the town hall, the building of them, making state championships.
Well, it is part of the town, correct?
That's town sponsored.
So it's town
School.
sponsored, so it would be automatically
Okay.
included.
Good.
Okay.
Do I have to amend my motion to add your 12C?
Yeah.
No, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's going to automatically go
Yeah.
in
Okay,
there.
the motion stands, the second stands. The discussion, are we done discussing? So, Madam Clerk, call roll.
Chaplinsky,
Yes.
Del Santo.
Yes.
DiPaolo,
Yes?
Dietzick,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Palmieri,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Triano.
Yes, thank you, everyone. A lot of work done tonight. Item 9, new business, tax refunds.
I make a motion to approve the tax refunds that are presented in our packet.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. Item B, appointment.
Yeah, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Item 1 for Public Works. We've got a couple interested individuals that warrant further discussion, so I'd like to make a motion to table this one.
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
Okay, very good. So you've made a motion to table, it's seconded. Any discussion? Oh, there's no discussion now. This is a motion to table. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, everybody. We are moving into executive session at this point with the cookies.
Madam Chair, can I make a motion to adjourn into executive session barring the press, including town attorney, town manager?
The reason of real estate, and real estate is on the west side of Southington.
No action.
No action.
After executive.
No action, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And everybody approves. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate more the cookies. Thank you, Mary Barbagallo, for making
We'll stay
cookies.